Oh my gosh. Hi, everybody. Look who's here. It's Sarah. And we're going to be like...
Okay, we're doing something totally crazy. So we've got Periscope on Julie's phone over here and Facebook Live over here, which I think there's a delay. Is there a delay?
There's always a little delay with people posting comments on
Okay.
Facebook Live. They will come. You're starstruck. That's so hilariously funny. Oh, you know what I didn't do?
What?
I totally forgot to turn the sound off on my phone. So hopefully we won't get a phone call on mine. But we'll, of course, always be on yours.
Well, I didn't turn mine off either, actually.
Oh. So we're pros. So basically what happened is
Yay,
this.
hi, Courtney.
I left with plenty of time to get here. It's 20 minutes from my house to get to downtown, but I entered a lightning thunderstorm and had to call Sarah and tell her, oh my gosh, I'm going to be late. So I'm here now. Yes. So here we are. Oh, look, here we
Yes,
go.
there
Courtney
we go.
and Sarah. Hi, you guys
Awesome.
on Facebook Live. So we're going to be doing that totally annoying thing where our eyes go back and forth. And but we're just so excited to see everybody together. Yay!
Yeah, this is really fun. Okay, so I got to meet Julie last year when I came to Cincinnati. That was the first time, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and she took me out for the best ice cream and margaritas.
Yeah, that's true. Why aren't we doing
doing
that
that
right
again
now?
tonight, right?
That's what we need to have right now. Of course, it'll make it worse. We're already a little bit loopy. Yeah.
Well, you've been sitting in traffic for a long
Yeah,
time.
totally. Oh
Yeah.
my gosh. Well, this is fun.
Okay.
Oh my gosh, I love seeing you all. Hey, Danny. Oh my gosh, it's so fun when I know people's names. Hi, Elizabeth. Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much. So, for those of you on my scope who don't know who Sarah is, let me introduce her. She is the head of Read Aloud Revival. She has a community that is passionate and devoted to reading aloud to their children, quality literature, and twaddle if they want to.
Yeah, absolutely.
I totally remember you had a Facebook thread where you're like, so what's your favorite twaddle? It was probably my favorite thing ever. I was like, yes, Nancy Drew. You know, that
Yes,
was so
totally.
good. So anyway, if you don't know Sarah, follow her on Instagram, go see her Facebook page. She's kindred spirit. She's somebody that you would really enjoy getting to know. All right, so that's Sarah. Okay, Sarah.
Awesome. Okay, now, so for my people, if you don't know Julie, you've got to know Julie, right? Julie is the creator of Brave Writer, which is a language arts curriculum. Well, you're so much more than a language arts curriculum, and a homeschool coach, and everybody's favorite homeschooler, pretty much,
Aw.
I think.
Well, that's awesome. Well, what I wanted to talk about, oh my gosh, look at the numbers. We have 1 million people watching
yeah,
right
we
now.
do. Wow.
This is super fun. Oh, good. A new Sarah follower. Yay. Okay, so here's one of the fun things that happened this week. We,
Sorry, Jody just said the two of us cost her more money than any other person we met in person.
well, let's just
Sorry.
hope it's all been beneficial because that's the goal. Yes, absolutely. So here's one of the things that happened this week. We launched our site, poetryteatime.com. And we have been talking about Poetry Tea Time for a long time, but Sarah's the one who asked me to do a masterclass on her website about it, which is what sort of caused it to explode beyond the borders of Brave Writer. So thank you to all of you who are Poetry Tea Time fans who've been doing it, and if you don't know that site's open, you need to go visit because it's just a gift back to the community.
Yes, poetryteatime.com if you didn't catch
Right.
it. You know, when we did that masterclass, that was like hands down everybody's favorite.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
We got
awesome.
so much feedback on that.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, it's been really fun to see the ways it's been interpreted. I love going on Instagram, and they'll often have like Poetry Tea Time hashtag and then Read Aloud Revival.
I know,
And so
yes.
I can tell, and Brave Writer. It's just a lovely,
Well,
harmonious relationship.
Okay, so something I love that you're doing with Poetry Tea Time on Instagram is you're featuring other people's
Yes.
Poetry Tea Time thing.
Exactly.
Okay, their Poetry Tea Time. So I was looking through the feed, so it's just at Poetry Tea Time on Instagram.
On Instagram.
And it is so inspiring.
That's just it. Like every day, the first thing I do on my phone, I get up and I put on my watch because it keeps track of my steps, and I don't want to miss a single one. And then
Because they don't count. unless they're
yeah,
tracked.
that's right.
I know.
Exactly. It's as though it didn't happen. And then I get out my phone and I open that hashtag. And like it makes me so happy because I don't have children anymore. You understand, they're all off doing millions of amazing things. So for me to see like these sweet little faces, and today Kim made homemade donuts for tea time. I'm like, Kim is a rock star.
That's amazing.
Yeah, I know. I think her Instagram is Give Me Grace, and I'm like, woman, you're giving us grace. Like
Yeah.
anybody who makes donuts for tea time has my total admiration.
Yes, definitely.
So yeah, so I love that. So what we wanted to talk about, and Sarah and I have not prepared even a bit, so just know that going in. This is going to be like spontaneous speech. We have talked though a little bit through email and via our team members about this need for confidence in homeschooling and how there seems to be sometimes a crisis of confidence. Like, women are doing the task, but they don't feel certain that they're up to it, qualified, doing a good enough job. Do you want to talk a little about that?
Yeah, we just did at the Read Aloud Revival membership not too long ago. We did a class called Focus and Align, and just give me like a yes in the chat if you were there. We had a whole bunch of you there. It was really fun. It was really fun to put together. It was one of our favorite things we've done so far. But one of the things that we noticed after that class is where people kept getting hung up, and me too, so totally I'm in the trenches here with you, is where we know in our gut what we think we should do. We know our children better than anybody, right?
Totally.
And so then we are watching them and we think we know how to respond to them, and we second guess ourselves. So we turn to experts or to homeschool gurus or to the homeschooler next door or in our co-op, and we have this comparison thing going on, and we doubt our own ability. So what I asked Julie was, how do we as homeschool moms learn to trust our gut?
Yes.
And like feel good about the fact that we know our kids better than anybody else.
Well, and of course, that's the whole reason that we chose to homeschool. No. So initially, you have a burst of confidence. It's the burst of confidence that gives you the chutzpah to even be a home educator.
Right.
Like, you can't take on this task if you don't, on some level, believe you're capable of educating your kids. So you want to start with the whole notion that you began with the confidence you need.
Yes.
What kills our confidence usually is a couple of things. One, challenges we don't know how to solve. Right? We suddenly have a child who isn't learning to read and it's scary, or we have a subject that we aren't very good at teaching and we don't know how to get the tools or resources. So sometimes there's like a legitimate crisis where we need more data gathering, more information. But then the most insidious is the comparison game. It's looking on Instagram and seeing someone make homemade donuts and thinking, oh my gosh, I'll never be that mother. Or, recognizing that one person is successful in one model that is attractive to us but doesn't really work for who we are, who our personality is.
Or who our kids are.
Or who our kids are,
yeah.
Right. Which you have to have both. You have to have your personality and your kids combined. It can't be one or the other.
Yeah.
What else? What have you noticed? What are some of the reasons you think homeschoolers lack confidence?
I think I think a lot of it is rooted in our intense desire to do this well, right?
Yes.
This is like the most important thing we're ever going to do, and we know that. And so I think we're just intimidated by the magnitude of the task.
Yes. Yeah. And you have, when you're in it, so I'm at the other end, so I can kind of look back and say, oh, all works out. When you're in it, you have no confidence it all works out. In fact, you're pretty sure it's not all going to work out, right? Yeah, it can't possibly work out. I have the most unique set of children. It won't work. And one of the things that I think helped me as I was going along was actually having conversations with my kids to get a beat on how they're doing and to see what they need. Because whenever I could meet a need they had, I felt more successful. Do you know what I mean? Like, if you have a child who says, Mom, math is really not working for me, and then, like you did, you hired a tutor, it's like suddenly you've got like this total solution, and you start to feel better because your child knows you're addressing their need.
Yeah.
A lot of the crisis comes when you can't tell what's needed and you just keep, throwing what I call throwing spaghetti at the cabinet and hoping it sticks. It's like, I just hope this idea works or this method works, but you don't have any way of relating to the child. So I think you have to start with the kid a lot of times.
I like that, and one of the things that I'm here in Cincinnati because I'm speaking at the Great Homeschool Conventions, and one of the things we're going to talk about tomorrow in my sessions is choosing one completely superfluous thing to do each term or however you chunk out your school year, and like do it based on something your kids want to do, because the memories they're going to have 20 years from now, I'm confident, are not going to be about math. They're not going to be necessarily like the facts that you dropped into their mind, but they're going to remember all these like warm family memories they had.
Totally.
Or if they really wanted to explore botany. And so I'm saying this because any of you who have been following me for a while know that I have a 12-year-old who has been asking me to do botany for like 4 years, and so we are going to do botany this summer next year, because I just know that the things that we do together around that are going to be meaningful. Is that what you find with your adult children?
Oh my gosh, completely. So for those who don't know, I shared this somewhere. I don't know if it's on yesterday's scope or what, but I just spent the weekend with my son Jacob. He's at Columbia Law. We were there with his girlfriend.
Oh, I saw a picture of that.
Yeah, and the three of us had this big conversation. His girlfriend grew up in India in Montessori schools. and Jacob was homeschooled, and they're like a perfect match. They're like the version of each other. And you know, if you meet someone from a Montessori school, they sort of get homeschooling. It's not a far reach for them. What they both discovered in dialogue is that they got to do a lot of things that were self-directed. And Jacob said to me, he's like, so Mom, you mean like all those things I studied that were interesting to me, like astronomy, baking, building with dominoes and making these huge domino mazes in the house, like that was part of your homeschool philosophy? And I was like, uh-huh. And then he was like, oh my gosh, so that's part of my education? I'm like, yeah. He's like 24 years old now in Columbia Law. It was hysterical.
That's awesome.
And I was saying, that's the point. That's like why we homeschool. Yes, you had your subject areas to go through, but what you just said is true. What they remember is vintage dance and the time you made for them to learn how to make bread bears from scratch, and you know, sewing a quilt while they're watching Arthur on television. Like that's what sticks with them. It's the properties of home, not the properties
of school. I love what you
school.
just said. I just saw Sarah in the comments said that your daughter's asking you to teach her sewing and you're paralyzed by that. Okay, so I'm thinking about what Julie's telling us here with choosing something that will ignite your children. But what I have found recently, especially with 6 kids, my kids are from 14 down to 2, is that I can't teach them everything. And so part of my duty, or my responsibility, I guess I should say, as a homeschooling mom, is to find out what ignites them and then connect them with people who can help them when I can't.
Yes.
So sewing is a perfect example because my 2 older girls would love to sew, and I don't just not know how to sew. I have like 0 interest in learning how to sew. But there is a nice older lady from our church who can come over and teach them how to sew. So things like that. Trying to think out of the box, like how can I give my child this?
No, completely. In fact, so for sewing, we had a homeschooling mom who was a quilter, and she started these sewing classes, and that's how Katrin learned to sew.
Cool.
And the thing is, I even know how to sew, but I had 5 kids. It was not going to happen. Then my daughter Johanna, she watched all the Pride and Prejudice videos with me, and we started reading Jane Austen, and she said, I want to host a Jane Austen ball. Like, okay, sure, that's easy for me to do. So I started looking for vintage dance lessons in Cincinnati, found a company that teaches them to adults. We had no money. We were absolutely flat out broke. So I called them with a lot of chutzpah, and I said, can my daughter,
can you just
a child...
that? I can so picture you doing this.
I said, can my daughter take your classes without paying? And here's the crazy thing. They were so excited that a young person wanted to continue the whole idea of vintage dance and care about it. They're like, if you'll distribute flyers once a week for us in the neighborhood, we'll let her come without paying. And can she bring her brother, because she's going to need a partner who's her height.
That's awesome.
So we had 2 kids in these dance classes, and every Monday afternoon, hail, sleet, rain, snow, my kids are running up and down the driveways of houses, putting flyers in mailboxes. And they did vintage dance, and at the end of that year, there was a huge ball. The ladies who loved Johanna gave her a costume, Noah wore a suit, and then they were done. Like, she's like, okay, I had the experience. But it was awesome. Of course they remember that. That's worth it. And of course, my husband at the time, he was teaching literature on Wednesday nights when the rehearsals were. I had to bring all my kids, my toddler, my little kids were like in a blanket in the corner. I'm saying shh the whole time, and they're dancing. Like, that's what homeschool is. And you can't feel bad about it. It's okay to be a nudge, to be annoying, to get what your kids need for them. And you're going to have, you know, rangy children. That's part of it. Nobody's kids just sit quietly while the older 2 are in vintage dance. Like, that just doesn't happen.
So now my next question for you, because this is something I know that some of people watching have got to be thinking, is what about when you know your child is behind where you want them to be in an academic subject?
Yes.
And you feel like you can't be confident because you feel like you're failing because you're pretty sure you are.
Yeah.
Talk to that.
Oh my gosh, she's such an interviewer. I knew this was going to happen. I was trying to flip it around on her. Okay, the podcaster coming out. Okay, so here's the thing. When you've got an actual worry, the only thing that cures it is more information. So what typically happens is we either go into denial and pretend like it's not worrying us, and we find all these people telling us, oh, it's okay, your child isn't reading at age 12. Oh, it's okay if they don't take algebra until they're a junior. But inside, you know you don't feel that way about it. So what you do is you go into pretend mode, or you go into denial, which is so unhealthy for your emotional welfare.
Or buy new curriculum.
Or yes, or you keep buying new curriculum. But what you're doing is you're sort of putting a Band-Aid, or you're going into, you know, your little hole in the ground and trying to ignore your worry. So research, wonderful, research. But also, it's important to take your own sense of worry seriously. Like, acknowledge it to yourself, talk to your spouse, and then if you can triangle in someone who knows more than you about that subject to get an honest evaluation, that would help. From there, you can start making curriculum choices that are actually sound, not just chasing the bright, shiny object on the homeschool discussion board, which is what we all do. I mean, we've all done it.
Because I know if I'm stressing because my toddlers are crying and there's a child in there taking forever to do their math assignment, and I look over and I notice that my 9-year-old's handwriting is like, oh my gosh, we need to fix this.
Yes.
Then no matter what I do in that moment, it's not going to be from like a place of rest, or it's not going to be like a good, wise decision. It's going to be my gut reaction. Probably I'm failing my children. I'm going to buy all new curriculum.
Totally.
Yeah,
no, totally. And you can never fix it in the moment. So like if you feel panic rise up in you, write it down somewhere, jot it down in a notebook. I used to jot notes in calendars because I didn't like big pages, so I just like on this day, and keep track of it. You might just for a week figure out, was it just that day? But really and truly, you can only fix things with more information and then taking a proactive action. And for me, like, math was my nemesis too. And I ended up swapping language arts tutoring for math tutoring with another homeschooling mom for a long time. Then we ended up just hiring her wholesale, and that helped me feel less stressed. You know? But that's just for math. There are other, you know, that's why Brave Writer has writing classes. I mean, there are ways. We did co-op for hard sciences, and that was helpful to me. So you definitely want to take those things seriously. I was just this morning, for those of you who are Brave Writer people, you know who this is. I was just this morning with Rita Sabasco, our speech and language pathologist. And one of the things that she said about reading and writing delays and language delays is that early treatment tends to work better. So it's okay to trust that you're a little nervous and go get an evaluation. Your kids don't know that the evaluation is about clinical diagnosis. Usually they think they get to have a special treat playing with a new adult. And that's how you want to treat it. You know, Jacob had speech therapy when he was like 8 or 9. It was the highlight of his week because he wasn't a school kid. And he was the only kid in our family who got to walk through the school doors and have a whole hour just for him, you know? So if you think of it that way, you at least will have the peace of mind of knowing whether they're within a range that needs treatment or not. And then you can relax and not let it dog you.
I like the writing it down, and I also like the idea of bouncing it off. Like, a lot of times my husband has so much better perspective than I do.
True.
So I go global. Like, pretty much the world is now imploding because my child's handwriting is sloppy, you know, and he's like, not really, that looks fine to me, you know, and then you're like, oh, okay, you know, it's just like that perspective that's really helpful. But I love the freedom to be able to say it's okay if it would make you feel better to get an evaluation, because then you'll know that you're addressing the issue. You won't feel like you're just
ignoring it, or somehow that you're a bad homeschooler if you somehow need help. Like, there's a feeling, I think, sometimes about diagnosis too that is fearful. Like, we don't want to put a label on our kid. I don't either. Noah turns out to be ADHD. He never knew it his whole childhood. He never did. I even got some evaluations for him, and I used ADD and ADHD techniques with him, but he never knew it. I never talked to him about it, nothing. So it's not something that you have to put a label on your kid and talk to them about. It's more information for you, so you have a new set of tools out of your tool bag.
I love it.
Yeah. And then when they're adults, if they find out, it's great for them because they can actually address it in a meaningful way, which is what I'm seeing happen.
Okay, so what about those of us who do the research?
Yes.
And then now we feel incapacitated because there's 7 good options and we're afraid we're going to make the wrong one.
So just pick one.
Did you hear that?
Just pick one. They're all comparable enough. You know, people ask me all the time, what's the best grammar program? And a lot of times I say, just pick one. They're all equally ineffective. Like, there isn't a grammar program that actually works with children. So just pick one. Go through it. Check it off the list. If you really feel like you need to do grammar, pick one. Do it.
I told you she's everybody's favorite homeschooling mom, did I not?
But here's the thing. So often, because of our perfectionism, okay, so think about this. You're already giving your kids a better home life, a better school education just by personal tutorial. Just by tutorial. Just because you make eye contact every day with your children and you care about them more than anyone else, you're already way ahead of most of the globe. You know, forget middle-class American kids in the prep schools. I'm talking about the whole globe. So you're already giving them this kind of connected experience that is the foundation of all learning. And the goal isn't necessarily, like you said, to stuff information in their heads. It's to give them a platform from which they are curious to learn more, which is what you're all about.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, you are.
Okay, so one of the things I was just thinking when she was saying that is that we have this tendency to think that we have to choose the best curriculum or the right curriculum, but if we took like a perspective, if we just said, okay, 20 years from now, when we're looking back, are we really going to say, I wish I would have used this Saxon instead of Matthew C., or I wish we would have used this grammar program over that one? It's just not likely that that's going to be the main.
No, and here's what happens that's really funny, and I say this as a writer of curriculum, okay, so just know that. The bottom line has to do with stimulating curiosity. So if what you're using isn't provoking curiosity out of your child, then it might not be the best tool for you. And you can get a long distance just from Family Fun magazine, nonfiction in the library, going to museums, reading quality books, nonfiction and fiction. That will take you a long way, especially if you're poor. And I was for pretty much most of my homeschool years, right?
Yeah.
I remember getting the Sunlight catalog and I would just take it to the library. I never bought the program. I couldn't afford it.
Yeah.
But all the books were listed for me and I just go get them. So you can get a long way. And when your kids are small, how many programs need evaluation for first and second grade math, really? I mean, really.
Right.
Like, we're teaching how to add and subtract. Like, really?
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
And even when people ask me things like, what about teaching the essay? You know, the format of the essay is on the internet for free.
That's true.
For
oh my
free.
gosh, you're right.
So
yes.
you just go get the format. Now, if you need help teaching rhetorical thinking, then buy a curriculum. But, like, if you're just looking for a format, then just, you see, somebody said childcraft. Yeah, fabulous.
Yeah.
Those are old. I remember having childcraft going up. Do you know what those are?
Yeah, I do. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I don't know how young you are.
I remember them.
Do you remember the days before the internet, Sarah?
There were days before the internet.
Yeah. Today I was actually thinking about how I used microfiche in college to study, like, for history, and I was like, how did anyone do research before the internet? I was like racking my brain. It's just crazy.
Like you did it, but
yeah,
you can't
but
remember
it's like
how you
so
did it.
hard to picture. Yeah, it's insane.
Yeah, yeah.
So
Okay.
talk to us a little bit about reading aloud, because that's your absolute specialty. You just came out with an incredible book list, people, on her website. It's like broken into categories. Every book has a gorgeous picture. What was the criteria? You said it was a good read aloud book, but what makes a good read aloud book?
Well, what I found is that a lot of the book lists that we found online they're excellent. There's a lot of book lists, right? And a lot of them have excellent recommendations, but not all books are equally enjoyable to be read aloud.
Okay.
So I have started to read some books that are really, they're classics. Some of my very favorite books, for example, are the Little House on the Prairie books, the whole series. Right?
Okay, yes.
I really struggle to read them aloud because they have very long descriptive passages.
Okay.
And so as you're I love listening to the audiobooks.
Okay.
However. So things like that, like differentiations where we thought, okay, books that have long descriptive passages that maybe have really good narrators on the audio version, we could recommend those as audiobooks.
Okay.
Or if you were going to take a book list, and especially if it has a lot of classics on it, and think you could read aloud any book from that list, and your kids haven't been listening to a lot of read louds for a long time,
Okay.
that can
Yeah.
be really just
Like a disincentive.
yeah. So the Little House books were the very first chapter books that I tried to read aloud to my girls. And I remember thinking, I thought I was going to love reading aloud to my girls like chapter books, and this is not at all what I expected it to be. So when I realized that there are books that are just more enjoyable to read aloud. Maybe they have good voices. If you like to use voices, then that's good. If you don't like to use voices, that might be something you want to think about. Books that have really interesting characters
Okay.
that have kind of enough of a quick moving plot that you're not kind of getting stuck in just like lots and lots of setting and things like that. I think what you're looking for when you're looking for a read aloud, especially if you're trying to make really good happy family memories, is something that everybody enjoys and stays tuned in.
And can't wait for the next chapter.
Right.
You know what's interesting when you say that? So my mom read the Little House books to me, and they were like my total favorite time with her. And what I've watched happen, I call it the Harry Potter effect. Like this rapid-paced narrative has really made some of those older books harder for kids.
Yeah.
And I'm such a contemporary person. I'm totally okay with that. I'm not going to bash the way we do things today. But it's been a very interesting development. And so what you just said is fascinating to me. I hadn't really put it together that then it might be a better book to read to yourself or listen to an audio book. That's really good.
Well, and one of the things I've also noticed is that at the beginning, when you're first starting to read aloud with your kids and you're reading aloud with your kids when they're really tiny, right? Picture books and board books. Then you start to get up to, you want to read some chapter books. If you start with something like Little Britches or Little House on the Prairie or even something longer like Matilda, you might struggle a little bit. So there are some longer novels like Cricket in Times Square.
Cricket in Times Square.
Good. Stuart Little, there's the E.B. White one.
Oh yeah, Charlotte's Web and Trumpet of the Swan are so perfect for that.
Yes, exactly. That kind of transition you up into letting your children listen for longer periods of time with a really engaging book that's not hard to listen to. And then they have this experience of reading aloud just being deliciously wonderful in their favorite time of the day. And then you can sit and read something like The Hobbit to your child.
Gotcha.
And it's not such a struggle for you or for the children.
Do you read to individual kids or always as a group?
Right now I read kind of in groups. Our kids are kind of in batches.
So that's what I did too.
The older set, which are 14, 12, and 10, I generally read to them all together.
Okay.
And then the younger set, which are toddlers, and I kind of read to them all together. Although whenever I sit and read to the toddlers, the older kids wander their way over and listen to picture books.
Oh, that's really cute. Do any of now you did a challenge where kids read to kids.
Oh my goodness.
Tell me about that, because that sounded incredible to me.
Okay, so in January we did a 31-day read aloud challenge. And what we did is kids committed to reading aloud every single day for a month. And it just had to be 15 minutes. It could be to their grandma, to their mom, to their neighbor, to their sibling, to their stuffed animals. And we didn't really know what was going to happen.
That's so
except
good.
we knew it would be good for kids to read aloud every day. And so what we found is that we had thousands of kids join in for this. And we heard from so many parents who said their kids started at the beginning of that challenge being kind of struggling readers. And by the end of it, just completely fluent or really excited about reading or picking up the book on their own every day.
Oh my gosh.
We had like prizes and incentives and that kind of thing, but really it was like the community of seeing all these kids. So and anyway, what ended up happening is if your kids read 25 out of those 31 days, they got to qualify for the prizes, the grand prizes, to enter for a chance to win those. And we had over 1,000 kids that qualified for that. It was so fun.
Oh my gosh.
So we're going to do it again in May.
Brilliant. Oh my God, that's brilliant. I love that. You know, when you said that you were asking them to read aloud. At first when I read it, I thought it was the parent reading. And then when you said them, so here's something interesting. My favorite writer is Peter Elbow. He's my writing guru, and he's written the seminal works that shaped my philosophy of writing. And I just interviewed him, and he said to me that he thinks reading aloud is too undervalued in today's society. We spend so much time reading silently and nurturing that, but reading is actually an auditory experience. And and then this morning, Rita said to me, you make the most progress in your ability to spell, handwrite, everything when you read aloud. And when you do copy work, those two things do more to cause the phonological systems to hook up. She said it's like a wireless network in your brain. And so I just think that is brilliant. It's like these two practices that look like you're not doing anything, because copy work is just copying what you see. Yeah. Reading aloud is reading what's already written. Yeah. And yet those do more to improve your writing skills and your reading skills and your comprehension than anything else you can do in language arts. Isn't that
love
amazing?
It too, because they're the two probably least painful that
yeah.
I can think of.
Well, that's the thing. And you know, we have this weird idea in homeschool that unless it's hard, they're not learning. I call it the homeschool
Why do we do that?
I call it throwing the homeschool hand grenade into the middle of the living room. Like just when everything's working, we get a new curriculum because suddenly everyone's having fun.
This is too easy.
It must mean they're not learning.
I'm slacking off.
Right.
That's funny.
Yes, when the opposite is actually true, that mastery is coming as ease is growing. That's what automaticity capacity is. So what we really want to do is continue to feed into skills that feel powerful to the child. Hey, I'm good at this. When you feel good at something, you want to do it more. And then you'll take the appropriate risk to expand those skills because you're happy, not because you're dreading the feeling of failure.
Yeah.
So I love that. I mean,
Yeah.
I just think hope everyone will sign up for that. I
Okay,
think
let me
that's
tell you
great.
where you can do that. Actually, you can.
Yeah.
We're doing another 31-day Read Aloud challenge in May, and you can sign up for that at rar31days.com.
Perfect.
And the book list that I mentioned before, which has, I think, 14 different categories right now, but we're adding to it all the time, of just books that have been selected for their readability. I'm trying to make it I'm trying to make it the word, and I can't ever say it, so that's not gonna work.
Readability?
Yeah, read aloud ability. But I always fumble, and so I can't really make it a word. You can get that at rarbooklist.com.
Awesome.
Oh, what was, okay, so rar31days.com. RAR like Read Aloud Revival. So
Right.
rar31days.com and rarbooklist.com.
Awesome.
That's where you can
Perfect.
get both of those resources.
Perfect. Awesome.
Yes.
Very good.
Okay, I want to talk a little bit more about Poetry Tea Time.
Okay.
Because this has
Awesome.
been, I think, I've seen so much on social media about how it looks to me like homeschool moms are finding the ability to enjoy their homeschool more just by doing this one simple thing.
Yeah, so here's what makes Poetry Tea Time magical. Two things. One, the parent believes in poetry. They all believe in poetry the way they believe in chess, cello, and classical music. Like there's this feeling that poetry has inherent value. If you know poetry, you must be cultured and educated. So parents believe in poetry. Children believe in treats. They love cookies, brownies, a decorated table, the special teacups. You put hot tea in a teacup, everyone has to slow down just to drink it. There's this coming together of specialness and the high value of academics around a beautiful context that creates magic in the family experience and in learning. And so the bringing together of this means everybody values the experience. You know how you go into teaching history and you're like, I value history, and your kid is like, And so you're like, well, that sucks. And then your kid's like, I value video games, and mom is like, you know? But when we do Poetry Tea Time, everybody's up for it.
Yeah.
The mom loves the
Yeah.
teacups, the kids love the teacups. So what happens is, you get to experience your fantasy of homeschool when you do Poetry Tea Time. Your fantasy is that learning happens naturally and that people are glad to be there. And your children's fantasy is, my mom loves giving me treats. And so you bring these together,
Oh my goodness.
and suddenly homeschool feels like it's supposed to feel.
Yeah.
What ends up then happening is it bleeds over into how you understand the rest of your homeschool. Because now you've had that experience, you're like, well, I want math to be magical. I don't want math to be awful. I want history to feel like we're connected and like we value it. We have all these moms saying things like, yeah, don't forget the candles. Oh, yes, they love candles. I always say one candle per child so they can all go like through the flame and then put it out themselves.
I have twin 2-year-olds. There's
Yeah,
no
candles yet.
happening in my-
Not yet. They have to grow up a little bit. A total nightmare. That would burn down the house. But what I was going to say is I've already had moms writing and saying that their kids are asking for tea while they do math. Like they get on a deep level, a cup of tea is going to feel cozier. So what I said earlier about the properties of home is not school. Home is this. Yay, I'm done with my schedule. Oh, I can wear whatever clothes I want. I can take off my bra. I can wear pajamas. I can walk around barefoot or in slippers. Home is not where bells ring. Home is where I get to kind of do what I want. I'm not under the scrutiny of other people. I can be who I am. And then we bring school in and everybody is frazzled because moms don't really follow school at home. If the phone rings, they're going to answer. If the email dings, they might check. They're going to stop if somebody knocks on the door. So we all know that it's not really school. So it feels false to impose school. So our idea then instead is embrace the properties of home. And this is what you do with Read Aloud. You cozy up on the couch, you use blankets, you play with toys. When you're doing math, you can take a break for a snack. I remember saying in my very first workshop, in the dark ages of the 90s, I was teaching about free writing. And I explained that before your kids free write, massage their shoulders like this, get them warmed up. And a mom raises her hand, she goes, wait, are you saying we're supposed to do that? And I said, yeah. She goes, that is so weird. This morning, before my son started writing, he said, Mom, can you rub my shoulders? And I said to him, don't try to get out of writing. This is school. I'm not going to rub your shoulders. I was like, you're at home. No one's going to think that you're molesting your child.
Yeah, right.
And massage his shoulders, help him relax, let him feel the values of home.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's when education takes place. It's when you have connection.
Yeah.
It's not just getting through the work pages.
Yeah.
So Poetry Tea Time, to me, is sort of the gateway drug to all that language-rich environment and even a more magical homeschool. And since we're talking about downloads, you can go to the homepage. We have a free download there too.
Yes, good. That's at poetryteatime.com?
Yeah, poetryteatime.com, our free quick start guide. And we have a book coming out of Poetry Tea Time poems.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Wow, exciting.
It's beautiful.
When?
You will love it. We don't. It'll be by the end of April. We're in production right now, but it's called Poetry Tea Time Companion. It's got beautiful illustrations, and it's all public domain poetry and little discussion piece with it. It's good.
Awesome.
Yeah,
I can't wait to see it.
I know. It's going to be fun.
Very good.
So, what do you think? Or have we
What time is it?
exhausted everyone? It's like
Oh, yeah.
7:15. I can't read a watch.
Well, I want margaritas.
Yeah, we got to go do that for sure. You guys, thanks for this.
Yes, thank you so much for coming.
I'm looking forward to reading all the comments on Sarah's page and catching up with all you brave scopers. Thank you for jumping on.
Yes, if you want to catch Julie's other scopes, you do scopes how often now?
Multiple times a week, usually twice at least. Yeah, there's
Okay.
over 130 of them or something.
Okay, so if you're on if you jump on Periscope and you're at Brave Writer, right?
Yeah, so if you go to catch, I have it, katch.me/Brave Writer, you will see all of my, let's see where it is here. You will see all of my scopes. Let's see if I can find it. Where is it? Hold on.
That's a really handy thinking of it.
Yeah, well, it's not that handy. I can't find what I'm looking for.
That's okay, I'll make faces.
Yeah, do something while you're waiting here. Where'd it go? Oh, here it is. It's right here. I'll put it on both screens. Hold on. So you guys all know because you're the scopers. Here's the Facebook people. Got it? Haha. You can screenshot it if you're on your phone. Otherwise, it will be here in perpetuity. Yay!
Yeah, and if you missed some of this and you want to go back and watch any of it, you can do that at the Facebook page. If you just
Totally.
click under videos at the Read Aloud Revival Facebook page,
Perfect.
it'll be there.
Yep. So, follow Sarah on Instagram, follow her Facebook page, go do her challenge, and get to know her work because she's really great.
Thank you. And then you have 2 Instagram accounts now, right? You have
Yes.
the Brave Writer account?
We have Julie Brave Writer is my Instagram, and then Poetry Tea Time is the other one. And that one just hit 1,000 in a week.
I
know, so excited.
I saw that today in the airport and I went, oh my goodness, that was fast.
It was really fast, I think. And we just have so much fun sharing your Poetry Tea Times. So be sure to tag me or hit the hashtag, and then we'll, share them with everybody.
Perfect.
Okay.
Okay.
Great. Bye,
Thank you.
everybody.
Bye.
Thanks for joining us today.